All right, good morning, everyone. It's 9 o'clock, and I'd like to call the Township of Georgian Bay Planning Council meeting of Tuesday, August 9th, 2022 to order. In the spirit of reconciliation, we wish to acknowledge the enduring relationship between Indigenous peoples and the territories they traditionally occupied. We recognize and deeply appreciate the historic connection they have to this place, the land, the water, the sky, and all that live on, in, and above it. We are grateful for the opportunity to meet here, and we thank all the generations of Indigenous peoples who have taken care of this place and who continue to care for it. And we want to show our respect. Hundreds of years after the first treaties were signed, they remain relevant today. May they guide our decisions and our actions. We commit to learn, to educate, to honor sacred places, and to take action towards real truth and reconciliation. Miigwech. Council, any declarations of pecuniary interest or conflict of interest or anything along those lines? Seeing none, let's go to our first motion. And I'm going to say, moved by Councillor Wienko, seconded by Councillor Cooper. Be it resolved that the council adopts the planning agenda of August 9th, 2022 as circulated. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Which means that we're about to get my first speech of the morning. This morning, there's a public meeting scheduled for one Shore Road closing application. I'll briefly summarize the procedure to be utilized for the meeting. First, the clerk will advise council as to when, how, and to whom notice of the public meeting was circulated for the proposed Shore Road closing being considered. Next, staff will advise of the purpose and effect of the bylaw and provide for any other information that is relevant to the applications, and staff will summarize any correspondence on file. From there, the public will have an opportunity to speak and provide comments to the bylaw being considered. Please be respectful of time and be concise with your comments. All commentators are requested to state their name and address. Council will then have an opportunity to provide comments for clarification. I now declare this meeting to be a public meeting pursuant to the Municipal Act of 2001 C-25 as amended to deal with the following proposed Shore Road closing bylaw. R2203 for 520 Suites Portage Road. To our clerk.
Notice of the public meeting was published in newspaper, and notice was sent to the abutting neighbors in close proximity of the property at least 20 days prior to today's meeting.
And to our staff, please.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. I'm just going to share my screen for my presentation. And I'm assuming everyone can see my screen.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Perfect. So the only application for Shore Road allowance this morning is R22-03 for 520 Suites Portage Road. The Shore Road allowance has been requested by the applicants to allow for future development. The Shore Road allowance for part one is 1,107.8 square meters at a cost of $12 per square meter for a purchase price of $13,293.60 plus HST. The property is zoned shoreline residential type 1 and environmental protection provincially significant wetland along the shoreline. There are no building permits on file. Here we have a location map of the subject lands, just zoomed out as well. And an aerial image. As well as a site sketch. So I'm just going to zoom in here. As you can see, part of the existing cottage is located on the Shore Road allowance. This property is located on Gloucester Pool on the Trent Severn Waterway. And we have an image of the survey as well. So the applicant will be purchasing part 1. Looks a little blurry here, actually. I'll just zoom out. And we received no correspondence on file, and the applicant, Michelle Allain, is present this morning if you have any questions for her or myself. And I'm just going to pull her over to the meeting.
You anticipated my first remark here, didn't you? Ms. Lane, I'm wondering whether you had any additional remarks to make with regards to this application. I see that you've unmuted yourself, but I'm afraid I can't hear anything. All right, I will at this point turn it over to council if you have any questions. And Ms. Allain, if you get your mic to work, you can add any additional remarks if you like. But first, we're going to go to Councillor Wienko, followed by Councillor Cooper, please.
I'm just curious, looking at the aerial overhead and also the survey, there's no dock on this property. I'm just wondering, it's unusual to see a shoreline residential with no dock. Is there a dock at all, or is that an issue with the fisheries involved, the fish habitat area involved? Does anybody know the answer to that?
Through your worship to Councillor Wienko, I believe there is a dock on the property. I think it's a floating dock. So when the survey was done, I think it wasn't put out at the time, but Ms. Allain would be able to comment on that. But I do believe there is a dock on the property.
All right. Hopefully we'll get Ms. Lane will be able to communicate with us in some form, but in the meantime, Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor Kutzier. My first question was, were there any structures in the or any sort of dock in the area that's being acquired? And we'll find out the answer to that, I guess. Although, did I not hear that this is all PSW? That entire shoreline?
Through your worship to Councillor Cooper, that's correct. The entire shoreline is PSW.
And I'm assuming the shoreline adjacent to the, looks like it must be to the west, along that bay is also PSW?
I wouldn't be able to confirm that. I did reach out to the planning department to provide me zoning on this property, so I didn't do an evaluation of the surrounding properties.
All right, and thank you. And just that it's indicated that there's going to be some development required or requested, and it's in a PSW. And Councillor Wienko talked about FH1. I thought I heard PSW. Is there FH1 as well?
Through your worship to Councillor Cooper, I don't believe there is. I was not provided that information from the planning department. All
right, so as long as has it been explained to the owner of the adjacent property that the likelihood of being able to do anything in here would be pretty minimal with a PSW like that. Was that explained?
She has already been in contact with the planning department regarding future development.
And has that been discussed? Do you know?
Councillor Cooper, this is not a planning application. This is a shore road allowance application. So, well, I think it's worthy that you bring up the concern. I don't think we need to discuss it at length at this point.
I think it's incumbent upon us to advise somebody acquiring these areas that we give them a heads up. That's what I'm trying to.
No, I appreciate that.
We don't want to lead them down a garden path, do we? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bocek, please.
Thank you. And Sydney, thanks for the report. My question is, historically, when you show lot lines on a survey like that, those lot lines extend straight forward into the water and continue out into the water. And by looking at the survey, it seems like if that does extend out, it's going to hit the shoreline on the one side and block off the ability for the neighbor to do any dock development or anything on that, because they would be encroaching on that lot line. Can you confirm to me that those lot lines, when they extend out into the water, it would not impede the neighbor from putting in a dock or doing any development on the shoreline?
For your worship to Councillor Bocek, it doesn't appear to cut off the neighbor's access. The application was circulated to both the abutting neighbors on either side, and we didn't hear any objections to the application. So we're going to make the assumption that they were okay with the application going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jarvis.
Yeah, thank you. Sydney, I'm looking at one of the first diagrams. It looks like there's a building encroaching on the SRA. Is that correct?
That's correct. There is their existing cottage is located on the Shore Road Allowance.
Okay, got that. And then I'm finding myself confused as is Councillor Bocek with regards to the lot lines. I thought normally when you got into these conflicts where you got a sort of a pie-shaped situation, when you get to the shoreline, the lines were adjusted to accommodate allowances, shore allowances for other properties in the area. Now, I agree, the property immediately to the, I'll say it to the left as you're looking in from the shoreline doesn't look like, it might be Crown land, I don't know. It doesn't look like it's privately owned. But if you extended the lot line from the applicant's property on that border straight down, it would cut off, yeah, it would cut off a number of properties who would actually cut right across the Shore Road Allowance on a couple of those properties. I don't know how far out you extend the line, sorry. And I know we've made adjustments before. You know, we've angled the line to accommodate, you know, the awkwardness of shorelines not being straight. I'm hoping you're following me here, but it looks to me, as Councillor Bocek said, that if you extended the lot line on, I'll say to the left of the property as you look at it from the shore, it cuts right across everybody else's property on that shore.
Are you speaking after it crosses the water?
Yeah, I don't know how far out it extends.
We're referring to the Shore Road Allowance, and the Shore Road Allowance extends to the edge of the water.
Okay, so that's all okay. We're not worried about going further. That's fine. Thank you for the clarification.
Allain, we can see you now. I don't know if we can hear you. Oh, no, I'm afraid we can't.
Can you hear me?
Yes, oh. Sorry, Mr. Suarez?
Suarez, yes.
You're,
Hi, how are you?
are you connected with the applicant?
Yes, I'm her husband.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't clear from the name. I apologize.
No worries. Yeah, we've had to sort of play with the settings a bit. I had to sort of figure out that I had to go into my audio settings, turn the mic output up, and then that was the only one. There were some technical issues on our end. No worries.
I'm wondering if you've been able to follow the questions so far.
Yes, we have, I think, heard the discussion that's going back and forth.
And you were one of the concerns was you're aware with any planning applications that the fact that you're on PSW shoreline could restrict your options.
I must confess, I don't know what PSW shoreline is, so I'd be grateful if you'd maybe just describe what that issue is and what PSW stands for.
Provincially sensitive wetlands. And if that's the zoning in front of you, it could have significant restrictions on what you can do on your shoreline.
Okay, so
But have you initiated, I mean, we understand you've initiated conversations with the planning department?
I believe that is correct. Let me see if there's a way of patching Michelle in, because Michelle would be the person who would have had those discussions. Hello.
We can see your lips move, unfortunately, but so far not hear you.
Is it possible, Michelle, that your computer mic is off?
It is very possible. Oh,
There.
So you're now getting Michelle through my headset.
Okay.
If you folks can hear each other, I'm happy to keep doing this.
I think we're creating that.
Okay. I'm gonna.
My computer might be off. I don't know how to change. I don't know how to do that.
There should be an audio settings button somewhere on the screen.
Oh, but my mic is off on for Zoom.
Bottom left.
I have a MacBook.
Okay.
Right now, like so.
Dankeschön.
All the things that I usually.
Okay, so just give me a second here. I'm going to try and. Okay, so
The only reason I found out. My understanding is we already had to off the job. Fine. Doesn't have to require.
I'm afraid we're not picking up. We cannot understand what Ms. Allain is saying.
okay, so just give me one more second here. I'm going to try one more thing.
What if I just tell you and then you tell them?
Why don't we try that? Why don't I just be the relay here?
Okay, please.
Okay, honey, go ahead. Sorry, start again. Wrong headset. I can hear you now. You're a little faint, so if you could be closer to the mic, that'd be great. But whatever you say, I'll repeat. So when we first purchased the land, we did not know it was on PSW. Okay, so we have more recently found out about that, but as we understand it, the fact that we have an existing dock means that we are able to have a dock of that nature on the property. Okay, and our further understanding is that were we to want a different type of dock, we would have to apply for that. Does that sound consistent with what I'm seeing some nodding? Okay. Right. Right. So on one side, it's Crown land, so we wouldn't be disturbing anybody on that side, as we understand it. And the other neighbor has not raised any objection whatsoever to our proposal.
All right, I think you've answered the key questions that have come up so far. We'll see, Councillor Hazelton has raised his hand. We'll see if he has some additional questions. They may be for staff or they may be for you. We'll soon find out. Councillor Hazelton.
Thank you. I don't want to beat up a dead horse here, but on the issue of the lot line extension, The fact that we haven't had the neighbor provide an objection letter is perhaps of interest, but sadly up at our community, we have too many examples of people who don't pay attention until it's too late. And I think that in this circumstance, given that that lot line is going to cut off much of the neighbor's property, if it's a linear straight line extension, I think we would want to have something on file from that neighbor saying, I understand, I have no objection. I just think that's a cautionary strategy that we should take, because as we know, up in cottage country here, people don't pay attention to these things until it's too late, or sometimes too late. So I would recommend that we consider that. Secondly, I'm looking at the zoning map for our township for this specific area, and it's not only an EPS, an environmentally protected wetland. It's also a fish habitat all around that entire bay. So that is something that the owners need to know and be aware of, because that will provide constraints going forward. I think you're correct that you'll be able to keep what you got, but you want to be aware that that will provide constraints going forward, given that F1 fish habitat in front of your property. Anyways, those are my comments.
Thank you. My only comment that I'm going to add in addition to that is that if I look at our sketches and that and the line drawn forward, it doesn't come anywhere near the dock or boathouse of the neighbor. So I think that's important that it will not be blocking the neighbor from using their current dock and boathouse at the front of their property. And if we sent them notice, then they've had the opportunity to consider it. Councillor Cooper, you want to make an additional comment?
Thank you, Mayor. And yes, just to reinforce what I said earlier, but I wanted to point out that if in fact there is a grandfathered floating dock there, it's grandfathered, is my understanding. But I think generally speaking, in a situation with PSW or EP and FH1, you've got what you got and you don't get anything more. So I just caution the owners to understand you've got what you've got. No floating boathouses or anything like that. Thank you.
Yep. Councillor Bochek.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm quite satisfied with what I've heard from the property owners, and I know they're going to be dealing with PSW and FH1 issues in the future if they plan to do any development down there. But as far as the purchase of the shore road allowance in order to get the compliance on their building and their properties, and if they want to do any additions, this may give them some extra square footage. So I'm completely fine. I went up and did a site visit of the area, and I think this is a suitable application for the property, and I have no issues with it at all.
Thank you. Any additional comments before I read the motion? I have moved by Councillor Bochek, seconded by Councillor Hazelton. Be it resolved that Council passed a closing bylaw 2022-068 to stop up, close, and convey part of Lot 21, Concession 5, designated as Part 1, Plan 35R-26825, Township of Georgian Bay, 520 Suites Portage Road, for the purchase price of $13,293.60 plus HST. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. And that's, thank you very much. And good luck with your plans for your property.
Thank you, council and staff. Good day.
Okay, now we're going to go into the Planning Act public meetings. And this morning, there's a public meeting scheduled for 3 proposed zoning bylaw amendments and 1 official plan amendment. I'll briefly summarize the procedure to be utilized for the meeting. First, the clerk will advise as to when, how, and to whom the notice of the public meeting was circulated for the proposed amendments being considered. The clerk will also advise of the appeal procedures. Next, staff will advise of the purpose and effect of the bylaws and provide any other information that is relevant to the applications, and the clerk will summarize any correspondence on file. From there, the public will have an opportunity to provide comments on the amendments being considered. Please be respectful of time and be concise with your comments. All commentators are requested to state their name and address for the record. After the public discussion, the public meeting will be closed. Council will then have an opportunity to provide comments for clarification. I now declare this meeting to be a public meeting pursuant to Section 34 of the Planning Act to deal with the following proposed amendments: Z 22-11, O 22-01, and Z 22-06, and Z 22-13. To our clerk, please.
Notice of the public meeting was sent by first-class mail to the respective owners and assessed persons within 120 to 800 meters of the property subject to the proposed applications, and to those persons and agencies likely to have an interest in the applications. These notices were sent at least 30 days prior to today's meeting. Included in each notice was an explanation of the purpose and effect of the proposed applications and a key map showing the location of the properties or a description of the lands to be affected by the proposed amendments. Other relevant information may also have been provided. These circulations were all provided in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act and the Township of Georgian Bay Official Plan. Members of the public are advised at this point that unless they make an oral or written submission to council before council makes a decision on these applications, that any subsequent appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal may be dismissed by the tribunal. Anyone who wishes to be notified of council's decision respecting the proposed zoning bylaw amendments must submit a written request to the planning department.
Okay, thank you very much. And now we switch over to our planning department. And I think it's Ms. Bradford is going to make this presentation. Ms. Bradford, over to you, please.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm just trying to share my screen here, but it says host disabled.
Well, the host is working on it as we speak.
Perfect. I've been having some technical issues this morning, so we've had our tech guy, Mark, helping me out here. So hopefully I can do this without a hitch, but we'll see. Time will tell.
Tech issues seem to be the theme of the day.
I think the theme of the term.
Okay. Can everyone see this okay? Can everyone see my presentation?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Are you seeing my notes? Okay, perfect. All right, so this presentation is for a zoning bylaw amendment for the lands located at 2033 Harrison Trail. Okay. The zoning bylaw amendment application has been submitted to facilitate the redevelopment of the subject property for a new two-story single detached dwelling by permitting a reduced front yard setback of 9.5 meters for both the dwelling and the deck, while the zoning bylaw requires a front yard setback of 20 meters for the dwelling and 16 meters for the deck. Based on the review of the applicable planning policies, staff are recommending the approval of the application. The subject property is located along the shoreline of 12 Mile Bay. It has an area of approximately 0.6 hectares and a frontage of approximately 36.5 meters along the shoreline. It is surrounded by Crown land towards the north and the west and has detached shoreline residential development further west. The lands to the east of the subject property are occupied by a residential dwelling, and 12 Mile Bay abuts the subject property to the south. Aerial review of the subject property suggests the presence of mature vegetation towards the rear of the subject property, and the surrounding properties appear to be occupied by detached residential dwellings and cottages, as well as natural dense vegetation. Currently, there is one single detached dwelling with an attached deck, one sleeping cabin, 2 sheds, and a dock located on the subject property. The applicant is proposing to remove the wood-sided shed along the eastern side yard of the setback of the property. So right here, they're going to remove that one. The existing development on the subject property has a front yard setback of 9.4 meters for the dwelling and 7.1 meters for the deck. Through this application, the applicant is proposing to maintain a similar reduced setback of 9.5 meters for both the new dwelling and the deck, with the proposed development to be located behind the existing front wall of the dwelling and deck. The intention is to utilize the existing building footprint area to preserve the subject land's mature vegetation and minimize the need for blasting and site alteration due to the steep and rough topography. So the subject property is located on rural lands as defined in the provincial policy statement. The PPS states that on rural lands located in municipalities, residential development is permitted and that development that is compatible with the rural landscape should be promoted. The applicant is proposing to redevelop the subject property for a single detached dwelling, which is an appropriate use on the subject property, and the proposed development is generally compatible with the surrounding land uses. The subject property is designated as waterfront area in the District of Muskoka official plan. Permitted uses within the waterfront area include low-density single-unit recreational dwellings and limited year-round low-density single-unit residential development. As such, the proposed two-story detached development and proposed uses are permitted on the subject property. The district official plan requires a minimum setback of 20 meters from the shoreline for all development, excluding non-habitable shoreline structures, open decks, and minor accessory structures. Where this setback cannot be achieved, a lesser setback may be considered where the redevelopment of an existing lot is proposed and the shoreline setback is being further reduced, provided that a net improvement over the existing situation is achieved through the implementation of on-site phosphorus management and impact mitigation measures. So as you saw on the site plan previously and confirmed by township staff through a site visit, the existing topography on the subject property sharply increases towards the rear of the existing dwelling and septic areas, and this would require significant blasting and site alteration to meet the required 20-meter setback. So the applicant is not further reducing the front yard, but rather proposing a net improvement on the existing situation through their proposed development. The district official plan also identifies the subject property as having moderate to high archaeological potential. The proposed redevelopment of the subject property for a single detached dwelling in approximately the same location as the existing dwelling is not considered a major development, and as such, an archaeological assessment is not required. Needs evaluation, and as such, a fire hazard assessment may be requested by the district. The district has also identified that the subject property may contain species at risk and/or their habitats, and as such, an EIS will be required. Based on the review of the relevant policies, the application conforms to the policies of the District Muskoka official plan. The subject property is designated waterfront within the Township of Georgian Bay official plan and is located adjacent to Type 2 fish habitat. The policies with respect to development in waterfront designated permit low-density detached residential development. The official plan requires a setback of 20 meters from the high water mark for all development. However, where this setback cannot be met, the OP provides that a lesser setback may be considered subject to a zoning bylaw amendment and site plan control if the terrain of the soil conditions on the lot required specific locations for the building, or if the proposal is for redevelopment of an existing lot and a net improvement to the on-site phosphorus management is achieved. So the current existing development is set back approximately 9.4 meters, and the new proposed development is set back approximately 9.5 meters from the high water mark. As previously noted, significant blasting and site alteration would be required to meet that 20-meter setback for the proposed development, given the existing topography on the subject property. Additionally, redevelopment of the subject property includes a new septic system, and this will have a setback of more than 30 meters from the shoreline. So additional measures for on-site phosphorus management will be implemented through a site plan agreement. The township OP also identifies type 2 fish habitat adjacent to the subject property. Fish habitat type 2 are moderately sensitive to development, and although they're important to the fish populations, they're not considered critical. So therefore, no fish habitat impact assessment is required. Based on the above, staff are of the opinion that the application meets the general intent of and otherwise conforms to the Township of Georgian Bay official plan. Subject property is zoned shoreline residential type 1. Residential single detached dwellings are permitted in the SR1 zone. Here you can see the zoning provisions, what's required in the SR1 zone, the existing and proposed. You can see that currently the dwelling has a 9.4 meter setback, the deck has a 7.1 meter setback, and they're proposing to reduce that to 9.5. No further impacts to the shoreline views are anticipated, and no further negative impacts are anticipated due to the reduction in this setback. Here are site photos. You can see the shoreline abutting the subject property, the rear of the subject property right behind the dwelling. Here, if you can see my mouse, is a raised fill area to the rear of the property. This is indicated on the site plan as well. And then you can see here, it's hard to see in 2D, but it's steep topography here, rough terrain, dense vegetation as well. These are conceptual drawings of the proposed cottage. So the intent of this application is to facilitate the replacement of an existing dwelling and cottage by permitting a reduced front yard setback for the dwelling and deck. Based on a review of the relevant policies, staff recommend the approval of the application on the basis that the proposal is consistent with the PPS, conforms to the provisions of the district official plan and the municipal official plan, and complies with the relevant provisions of the zoning bylaw, with the exception of the requested amendments. The general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw is maintained. Thank you. I'll see if I can stop sharing this. Did that work?
Yes, thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
And to our clerk, if there's been any correspondence received on this application.
One letter of correspondence was received from the Trillium Lakelands District School Board stating no comments. One letter of no objection was received from the District of Muskoka, provided that appropriate development control techniques are utilized to implement on-site phosphorus management and impact mitigation measures to achieve a net improvement over the existing conditions on the lot.
Thank you. And to our clerk, one question before we proceed. To the best of my recollection, and you know it's poor, this is the first time I believe the school board has commented on a planning application. Is that something new?
Sorry, Your Worship, I can't speak offhand if it's new or not. I know sometimes they're commented or circulated for comments based off development and impacts of population on the school system.
Interesting. A good day when you learn something, isn't it? And with that, I'm wondering if there are any members, whether the applicants or any members of the public wish to comment on this file.
The applicant is present as well as their plan.
To the McElroys, do you wish to add any additional comments, or would you like me to turn it over to your planner?
No, go ahead.
All right, thank you. Ms. Lemieux, welcome. Do you have
Good morning, Your Worship.
Do you have any additional comments you'd like to make before we turn it over to council?
I do have, and I understand that staff's done a great job giving a detailed overview of the application, but I do just have some additional slides that I'd like to show if Your Worship is all right with that, just to provide some further context on kind of the process thus far.
Yeah, we would appreciate that. Thank you.
Great. Give me one moment here. So I'll skip over the overview because Ms. Bradford did a great job, but I did just want to touch base on a couple of things for council's consideration. It's been quite a long process thus far. We began discussions with the municipality back in November of 2021, and many design iterations have occurred. So just wanted to also point council to the topographical survey in front of you. So I'm going to zoom in a little more here. So this is really the existing conditions that Ms. Bradford was speaking of the subject property. As council's aware, 12 Mile Bay, very similar to Go Home Lake in the sense that most of the properties have a steep slope or steeper slope. towards the water, which provides some design constraints when it comes to achieving 20 meter setbacks, and most of the existing development is within that area. So just some further photos we were able to take from the water last year that I think provides council with some great visuals if you weren't able to make it out on the water to see this property. So these photos are looking at the property from the edge of the dock as well as further away from the water. So as you can see, great mature vegetation. None of this mature vegetation within the front yard would be impacted by the proposed development, which we have confirmed through the drainage and grading plan that was submitted. Here's some more close-up photos of the existing dwelling that's on the property. As you can see, the existing dwelling actually has quite a large walkout area, pretty much a walkout area, though they have been using it for under storage for many years. Again, just showing the topographical change for where the dwelling is located right now. And then just some other shots of looking straight on to the property. But really, I wanted to take council a bit further kind of out along 12 Mile Bay, identifying what the existing character is in the area. So here on the left, the subject property is denoted by this orange star. And as you can see, the lands both to the east and the west are significantly developed towards the shoreline as it does continue through this area of 12 Mile Bay. So the last thing that I really wanted to just steer council into understanding the process thus far. So when we initially spoke with the township's planning consultant back in November of 2021, the initial plan was really to fully work within the building envelope of the existing dwelling. And as you can see here, this red line identifies where the existing front wall of the dwelling is. So initially, the plan was to have the rebuild be in that exact same area. But the feedback that we got from the municipality, which was extremely helpful in the design process, really allowed us to try and figure out a way to essentially get as much of the front wall of the dwelling behind what currently exists as possible. So then the second design iteration on the right side of your screen here, and this is what was actually submitted as part of the rezoning for council's consideration. As you can see, the front wall of the dwelling at this point was fully brought back. However, the deck was still within the existing deck setback. So in many discussions that we had with the township and also just myself with our clients, we really tried to achieve as best as possible the overall policy direction by both the district and the township's official plan, which really resulted in this, which is they finally were able to come up with a plan that brought the majority of the building even further back, as well as the majority of the deck beyond the front wall of the dwelling. So we really believe that this is the optimal development opportunity for the property while also maintaining that shoreline area. So a few things for council's consideration. It's important to note that though through this application, we're asking for 9.5 meters to the dwelling, that 9.5 meters to the dwelling really is just the front post of a covered porch. The actual enclosed portion of the cottage, the main front wall here, is actually going to be located at 14.3 meters. So we've really done our best to get that dwelling, the majority of the bulk of the structure, as far back as possible when considering, of course, the topography to the back and also the ability to still maintain an area for an appropriate septic system. And also, of course, the deck itself is almost fully behind that existing front wall of the dwelling, which is great. And you might ask, why couldn't we rotate the cottage to fully align with this front wall of the existing dwelling? And really that comes down to the location of this existing bunkie. So we really didn't want to have to ask for any reduced setbacks to the bunkie. We wanted to keep a reasonable separation between those two structures. And then as well, if we were to rotate the cottage further, we would have had to ask for reduced setback on the east side of the property. So really trying to appropriately fit the structure into the site, but also getting as far back as we can from the water. And this is the excerpt of the drainage and grading plan that was submitted. So again, the applicants are well aware that the importance of maintaining their shoreline and being able to ensure that through construction, no negative impacts from construction and sediment and all of that has any impact on the water. This drainage plan includes construction mitigation, which will be implemented through the site plan process. So I really wanted to just point those features out to council because I think it's really an important piece. So again, just wanted to reiterate this 9.5 setback really is to this front post here to where the covered deck is. The majority of that front wall, again, will be further behind 14.3 meters. So anyways, I'm available for any questions, as well as the owners, Vanessa and Craig. And nice to see everyone this morning and looking forward to any feedback or comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm just going to confirm with staff, we have no other members of the public who have expressed interest to speak to this matter that we're aware of. Seeing a head shake in the distance, I'm going to say, okay. It is now council's turn. Council, let's start with Councilor Cooper on this one. Councilor Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor. I feel a little bit like Quick Rod McGraw getting in so quickly, but anyway, just a couple of questions for, I guess, maybe Victoria or our planner, Alley, is it Alley? I'm sorry.
Allie, that's great. Thank you.
Alley, just want to understand, I don't have the report in front of me. I read it a couple of days ago, so I'm doing all this from memory. I don't have anything printed off like our mayor has in front of him. I don't have a printer here, so I'm doing it, as I say, from memory. So what is the square footage, the new square footage of this building?
Through your worship to Councillor Cooper. So the square footage as the house has been designed at this point, I believe is about, and again, the owners might be able to correct me, but I believe it's about 4,700 square feet. So that does include area within the basement for a walkout to that water. So it's about 4,700.
So to the planning department then, do we not have a size restriction of 3,500 square feet in our township? Regardless of a basement, the basement is square footage. If you can live there, it's square footage. So I'd like to understand that there's no request or discussion at all around the square footage. So I'd like to know why.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Cooper, I am not 100% sure on that specific. I can certainly look into it and get back to you. I believe that might just be a restriction for Cognishing, but again, I can double check and circle back and let you know.
Thank you.
Councillor Cooper, just I'm looking at the report and I would like to get the confirmation of Ms. Lemieux on this, but according to the report, the existing cottage has 90.75 square meters and the proposed is 235.63 square meters.
Per floor, I think.
Near 4,700.
Per floor, I think, Mayor, it might be 235.
Well, that's why I think we need confirmation.
It's 235 square meters per floor. In other words, the footprint, it talks about the footprint at 235. And that's why I asked the question, because it struck me that we're talking really around somewhere between 4,500 and 5,000 square feet. And as far as I know, the size restriction is 3,500 for the entire township for new development. So I'd like to understand that as that's a concern. So if I could hear back about that. The other comment that you made, Mayor, about hearing from a school board, I've been following this for 15 or 20 years. It's the first time I've ever heard the school board weighing in. And while there was no comment or no objection, it seems rather odd. I think what school boards normally would be notified, I guess they're notified. The only reason they comment, though, is if it would impact attendance at a school. And, you know, this is a single dwelling probably a seasonal resident, so it's more than just a bit irrelevant. Anyway, there we go. Thanks.
Yeah, not the least to say, which it may not even be in the appropriate school board catchment area. But that's for our on the side here. No, I understand what you're saying, Councillor Cooper, about that 235 square meters. It's, you know, in that sentence it referred to gross floor area, but the following sentences talk about lot coverage, so that would be per single floor. So that as well, we do need that confirmed. Absolutely. Ms. Lemieux.
Thank you, Your Worship. To Councillor Cooper's question, so this property is located within the general waterfront area, which Ms. Bradford was correct. There is no size restriction in either the general waterfront policies of the official plan or the general SR1 zone. So it's the waterfront communities such as Pog Machine, 6 Mile Lake, and those waterfront communities that have maximum square footage in both the official plan and the zoning. This property is not within that area. So properties along 12 Mile Bay are really just governed by general zoning provisions, which are setbacks, lot coverage, and height. So hopefully that clarifies that. So when we initially submitted our application, which in my PowerPoint, you did see 2 different design iterations. So with the submission that we had, that was when the cottage was proposed to be much closer to the water. So the square footage of that design reiteration, which is quoted in our planning report, was slightly smaller than what is now proposed, given that we were able to bring the building much further back, giving the applicants the ability to build a little bit more in the back portion of the cottage to be able to add 2 guest bedrooms. So that's where the increase lays. But both the mayor and Councillor Cooper are correct. That measurement was for essentially the footprint, the bird's eye view size of the cottage. The 2 levels that are proposed, which is permitted in the official plan, reach about 4,700 square feet. But again, because of the design of the dwelling, they're still maintaining well below the maximum building height. And I also believe I think they're less than 3 or 4% of lot coverage total. So in our review of the application, we did feel that the proposed built form was reasonable. So hopefully that clarifies. Thank you.
Mayor, if I could just follow up quickly.
Please.
I must say I'm surprised that there's no limit. Basically, that's what I'm hearing, other than in very specific areas in our township. I thought 3,500 was built into our new 2014-75. However, given that, I would also like to know that when we calculate lot coverage, Ms. Lemieux, do we not calculate the overall square footage? And if it's 4,700 square feet, it would be 4,700 square feet would be part of that calculation, not the footprint. So do we have that calculation available?
So through your worship, I assume I'm able to speak. Thank you. So the lot coverage would just be that bird's eye view. So just that footprint. So it would be essentially the floor plate, which I know council is familiar with. And just looking back at the report, so in this zone, so the SR1 zone, they're allowed a maximum of 7% lot coverage. And in total, at the time of submission, it was 5.4%, but we are also removing a shed. So I believe that number comes down to just at 5% for total lot coverage. But again, that's the floor plate.
So just clarification. So you're saying it's only the footprint that's calculated. GFA doesn't matter.
Correct.
Wow. But that's just in SR1 area, correct? Because there are other areas. Don't we calculate the gross floor area?
Absolutely. Through your worship, absolutely. This is one of the few shoreline areas in the township really that don't have the additional gross floor area provisions applied to it. 12 Mile Bay is kind of up in their own area to the north of the township. So they don't have that restriction put on them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very interesting. Councillor Jarvis.
Yeah, I've learned a lot already. Thank you, Victoria, for that bit of education. That was all news to me too. My only question, therefore, because everything else has been answered, is that in the schematics you indicate an area, and in the photograph, Ali, there's an area of fill. It's called fill, not with a PH, but with an F. What is that area of fill? Why does it exist? Do we know?
Through your worship, it's the septic system. Sorry, just the survey has it identified as fill, but it is the septic system, the existing.
It's the current. So the proposed cottage looks like it's going over top. Is some of that fill going to be removed then?
Yes, so that, and I can share my screen quickly again. One moment here, sorry. I did not identify that while I was speaking. So hopefully you can see my screen now, Councillor Jarvis.
Yes.
So here is the current
Yeah.
bed area. So this area back here is the existing parking. You can see this here.
Yep.
The septic is going to be back in here.
There's another diagram showing that. I saw that.
Yes. Oh, here, this one probably shows it better. So
Yeah.
the septic is going to be going back in here. Again, you can see where the rock face is. They're tucking it in back in here. So it's
Okay.
going to meet the 30-meter setback as required, as the current doesn't, but that will be removed and part of the building envelope. So
When you're removing a septic, I presume is that bed and tank in there?
that's my understanding, not really my forte of how it's going to work. The clients might have
Okay.
more of an understanding talking to their builder, but my understanding is the entire area will be removed, remediated as required in order to put the building in, and then the new septic system will be placed further 30 meters back.
I presume there are certain environmental guidelines they got to follow in removing a septic system, right?
Yeah, exactly. And this is why it was also really important for us to obtain, and this is why the township asked for it, this drainage and grading plan, to make sure that essentially, the appropriate, because we all have seen it in this township and other townships when construction's happening, that proper fencing and, construction mitigation doesn't always occur, but here we will be able to make sure that happens based on this plan and based on the site plan agreement that's going to be in place. So yes, it will be removed and remediated appropriately.
Okay, and then one final question, Victoria, and it's really just out of curiosity, that lower level, obviously now we don't have height restrictions. That was going to be my question. So 3 stories is not a restriction as well, correct?
So in the general waterfront provisions and for the entire township, unless a waterfront community has a more restrictive, 2.5 stories is permitted. So this design here, it is 2 stories facing the water. This is just kind of a grand, I'm sure many members of council have seen these types of cottages where it's just more of a grand, higher ceilings in the front. And then in the back, there is this small, essentially a dormer off to the back that's been proposed to allow for 2 small guest bedrooms. So the cottage itself is essentially 2 stories with an extension on the back. But correct, 2.5 stories is the maximum stories for the waterfront community.
Oh, it is. Okay. And, okay. Yeah,
And it's
thank you very
8
much,
meters.
Victoria. Appreciate
8 meters in height. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. 8
Yes.
meters is maximum, and this complies. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wojcik.
Where am I here?
Planning-
So many buttons to push. No, I was listening. I put my hand up when Councillor Cooper was speaking, and he was stating that he thought there was a cap of 3,500 square feet or 275 square meters in our township. And I know that's true in some of the community plans, like the 6 Mile Lake community plan. They have a 275 square meter cap, but I wasn't under the impression that there was any restrictions at all. You could build a 9,000 square foot home like we've done on Gloucester Pool. We have a 7,500 square foot one that was done that long ago. So Victoria Lemieux, who doesn't work for the township, kind of straightened me out on that one, and I appreciate that. But yeah, there's not a cap as far as I know. There's no cap in this township at all on unless it's in a community plan.
All right, thank you. Any additional comments at this time? Ms. Lemieux?
I just wanted to, sorry, Your Worship, I just wanted to clarify just a comment that was made by staff, which I think was just an error. They did mention that the district required an EIS report, but I did quickly take a look at the comments reviewed, and the clerk, Ms. Waive, did correctly comment that the district was satisfied with the application so long as phosphorus management through site plan is ensured, which it will be. So I did just want to clarify that comment, but Ms. Bradford, if I am unaware of other comments, please advise, but it's our understanding that the district does not require any further studies or reports at this time.
Thank you. Council, I have moved by Councillor Jarvis, seconded by Councillor Wienko. Be it resolved, the council enacts bylaw 2022-069, being a zoning bylaw amendment, Z22-11, to permit a reduced front yard setback of 9.5 meters for the dwelling and deck on the lands located at 233 Harrison Trail. Any further or final comments, Councillor Jarvis?
Apologize for this, but I recall an earlier application where District of Muskoka did request a deferral or for forest fire assessment. And I see in here under section 2.8 C, there is the possibility that the Muskoka and area municipalities may request an assessment undertaken by a qualified professional regarding wildland fire risk. Now, we've already had one deferred as a result of that, a request like that. I'm just wondering why the district has not applied the same sort of guidelines in this case.
I can take that one, Councillor Jarvis. We've been working very closely with the district, but they give us what they give us. So we're not privy to what goes into their commenting letters. Sometimes we'll flag things, as Ms. Bradford did, where we see that, you know, the district in the past asked for that, but in this case, their commenting letter, they didn't include it. So we just wanted to flag it in case, you know, something changed and they came before council again if they needed another comment from the district, but we're not really privy to when or why the district asks for certain studies. And this wildlife one is new to us, so we're still fleshing out those details.
Like the school district, yeah. I guess on behalf of the property owners, then, is there a possibility that after we approve this, the district may step in and go, hang on a moment, we got to do a wildland fire risk study?
It would be very unlikely. The district isn't involved in site plan. They will get notice of council's decision, so it would be very unlikely that they would flag anything, but they could potentially say, oh, we missed this and ask for it, but it would be very unlikely.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other comments? Councillor Cooper.
Thank you very much, Mayor. And I just, as an aside, after all this discussion, I wonder if Jan could provide us with an answer with respect to lot coverage with areas in the township, because my understanding was it was 3,500 square feet at waterfront. Now, something obviously in 12 Mile Bay is different, but I would like to have clarification on that restriction of 3,500 square feet. I thought it was relatively universal across waterfront, and it would be helpful to have that clarification. Thank you.
Ms. Goodett.
Yeah, through your worship to Councillor Cooper. I was checking the zoning bylaw while everybody was talking, and there are a few hits. BSR 6 zone is a hit, which is a cog machine, I believe. So yeah, as far as I can tell, looking right now, it's not a general provision. It's unique to those special areas, as Ms. Lemieux and Ms. Bradford mentioned. But we can look into it further and see if there's anything hidden in here.
Thank you very much. I was really just looking for some feedback, not necessarily right now, but let's sort of find out where the restriction applies and doesn't apply. And it's a lot of it is waterfront related. Some of it is community plan, but as my understanding, there were other areas as well. So I think it would be helpful for all of us on the Planning Council to understand that fully. So thank you very much. And I don't have any other further comments or concerns. Thank you.
We'll follow up via email after this.
Thank you. Council, are you ready for me to call for the vote? All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Let me pause for a moment while I'm a little bit confused with my pages here. Okay. Next item on our agenda is item 7B, and that is a zoning bylaw amendment Z22-13. I'm going to say thank you to the McElroys and Ms. Lemieux for their attendance on the prior file. I appreciate that, and good luck with your carrying your plans further.
Thank you.
Okay. We're now doing, just want to make sure I get the right. 7B is that the South Bay Road one or Corrievale Road? South Bay Road, okay. I apologize. I had one agenda where they had the order in reverse order, but I think we're now doing South Bay Road.
Correct.
Okay, Ms. Gatso, I'm going to turn it over to you for the initial presentation, please.
Perfect. Okay, I am sharing my screen. Just want to ensure everyone can see correctly. If everyone can see the screen, please let me know.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Perfect. So good morning, Mr. Mayor and members of council and participants in the meeting. Today, I am bringing forward official plan amendment 02201 and zoning bylaw amendment Z2206 for 434 South Bay Road. The applications for the proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendments are John White and Kim DeBow, and their agent is Victoria Lemieux of Morgan Planning and Development. The purpose of this proposed amendments is to facilitate the creation of 4 new rural residential lots from the subject property, resulting in a total of 5 lots by permitting a reduced lot area ranging from 1.3 hectares to 2.1 hectares and a reduced frontage ranging from 75 meters to 118 meters. The zoning bylaw requires a minimum area of 10 meters and a minimum lot frontage of 135 meters, while the official plan requires a minimum frontage of 152 meters. Staff are recommending that the Township of Georgian Bay Planning Council defer the proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendment applications until peer review comments are addressed in a revised environmental impact study in conformity to the district official plan has been demonstrated with regard to lot frontages. As you can see here in the image, this is the general location of the subject property. It is generally located just south of the intersection of South Bay Road and Birch Acres Drive, which is right here, if you can see my mouse, and is municipally addressed as 434th South Bay Road. The subject property is located within the Honey Harbor Coastal Waterfront community near the South Bay Cove Marina, as you can see on the screen. The area of the subject property is approximately 17.18 hectares, and the frontage is along the South Bay Road, which is a Class B district road. Right here, you can see in red, and that frontage along the road is 489 meters. An official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment are required to facilitate the creation of 4 additional rural residential lots from the subject property, resulting in a total of 5 lots, as you can see here. The 4 proposed lots are labeled A, B, C, and D, and the retained lot, Lot R. As you can see here and as stated in the report, these are the characteristics. Additionally, if the official plan and zoning bylaw amendments were to receive council's approval, the applicant intends to submit 5 consent applications for consideration by the Committee of Adjustment, which include 4 lot severances to create the proposed lot fabrics, resulting in 4 severed lots and 1 retained lot, and 1 easement to create an easement for use of the portion of Lot R driveway by Lot A. As you can see here, this is the proposed site plan as submitted by the applicant and agent. Please note that the applicant has not made any formal applications for development, and the proposed dwelling, septic system, and driveways, as you can see here on the map, are just preliminary renderings at this time. You can also see the environmental features on the property and how they relate to the frontage on South Bay Road. For council's consideration, we have a couple site photos here. The subject property where our notice sign was posted. Here you can see South Bay Road and Birch Acres Drive just at the entrance here. Additionally, you can see South Bay Road east facing where the trees are is where the site is. And additionally, as well, west facing South Bay Road. In regards to the policy framework, the site is classified as rural lands in the provincial policy statement. Additionally, Section J41, subsection D of the District of Muskoka official plan notes that lands which do not physically or functionally relate to the waterfront area will be deemed to not be within the waterfront area. The subject lands are separated from the waterfront by an intervening district road and do not have physical access or visual sight lines to the waterfront. As such, the designation for the subject property is interpreted as rural for the District of Muskoka official plan. The official plan also states that there are provincially significant wetlands on the property, and it fronts a Class B district road. In terms of the township official plan, it is classified as rural within the Honey Harbor coastal waterfront community. There are provincially significant wetlands on the property, and it is within 120 meters of fish habitat type 1 or critical fish habitat. For the zoning bylaw, it is classified as rural lands with environmental protection wetlands, EPW, and environmental protection provincially significant wetland, EPPSW. In terms of conformity to the various plans, I will start with the provincial policy statement, which says that residential development and accessory uses are permitted on the subject property. The proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendments are consistent with the relevant policies in the provincial policy statement, pending a revised environmental impact study to address peer review comments and to fully characterize potential impacts to the environmental features. Next, the district official plan, which states that residential development is permitted on rural lands. Additionally, a hydrological assessment submitted by the applicant demonstrates that the proposed lots can be privately serviced, and this has been supported through peer review. An environmental impact study has been submitted to evaluate the impacts of identified natural heritage features on the property. The applicant is in the process of addressing the peer review comments for this study and finalizing a revised study. Additionally, district staff are unable to support the lot configuration as currently proposed at the frontage, as frontages do not meet the minimum frontage requirement for a Class B road. As such, the proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendments are considered to not conform to the policies within the District of Muskoka official plan. For the township official plan, the proposed lot size is generally compatible and comparable with other lots surrounding the subject property. Additionally, the resulting lot pattern is considered appropriate for its location along a district road. The official plan and zoning bylaw amendments meet the general intent and otherwise conform to the Township of Georgian Bay official plan. However, they are pending the submission of a revised EIS to address peer review comments in order to fully characterize potential impacts to environmental features. For the zoning bylaw amendment, detached residential development is permitted within the rural zone. The resulting lot pattern is considered appropriate for the lots that front on a district road and is intended to be used for low-density residential development. No development is permitted within the EPW and EPPSW zones, except for conservation or conservation education uses. The proposal currently does not show any development uses on these lands and generally appears to conform with the relevant policies of the zoning bylaw. Impacts to environmental features will be further quantified pending the submission of a revised EIS to address peer review comments. For council's consideration, again, based on the review of the relevant policies, staff are recommending deferral of the applications pending the submission of a revised environmental impact study that addresses comments outlined in the peer review study by Hutchinson Environmental Services, and conformity with the district official plan has been demonstrated with regard to lot frontages. I will stop sharing my screen right now and am able to address any comments or concerns council may have.
Thank you very much. I'll first turn over to our clerk and ask if she has any correspondence on file with regards to this application.
One letter of correspondence was received from the Trillium Lakelands District School Board stating no comments. 2 letters of objection were received from the District of Muskoka and Megan White. 8 letters of support were received from Otto and Marilyn Herbaki, David Fielder, Morris King, Pamela and Jared McLaren, Stephanie Trininci, Diane King, Patricia and Mary Sneeden, and Sherry Stoneman.
Sorry about that. All right, thank you very much for that. Are there any, the applicants, I see already the applicants are being brought across. Are there any additional comments that they wish to make before we see if there are any members of the public who want to make comments? Mr. White, Ms. DeVoe, Ms. Lemieux, any comments, please?
Good morning, Your Worship and Council. John White here. I'm not sure if you can see me, but I suspect you can hear me.
We do not see you.
Okay. Well, you're not missing much. Sorry.
Most of us know what we're missing.
Thanks. Yeah, so I'd like to thank Victoria Lemieux and McClelsky Nielsen for all their efforts to date, and council and mayor for taking the time to review all of this stuff with us. What we're trying to achieve, obviously, is 4 residential lots and a retained lot, which you see before you. District appeared to want to hear feedback from council before they did any further work on this. And I think I should probably best let Ms. Lemieux take over from here, unless you have further questions for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Lemieux, did you want to add to what we've seen so far?
Thank you, Your Worship. I did also have a PowerPoint, but I will leave it because Ms. Gatso did a great job giving an overview, and I think the majority of council understands what really the what we're trying to achieve essentially through these applications in front of you, and just some further context. So myself, Mr. White, and the district did have a meeting last week with both planning and engineering staff at the district. Again, just to further discuss and have a really fruitful conversation with district staff about their comments and also what their potential concerns were. So that was a really productive conversation that we had. And as Mr. White mentioned, both the district as well as myself, and I know also the township's planning department and Jail Richards is really interested to hear at this point feedback and any type of comments or general maybe potential design reiterations or anything of the such that council would like to see, because I think this is a really interesting conversation as a whole for council to have, which is really, what could lot creation look like in these rural areas, given the restraints that the municipality obviously has in its waterfront communities, not being able to really have so much lot creation anymore. So really, hey, where can that go and what is reasonable? So obviously this afternoon, or I guess it's still this morning, this is the public meeting technically for the applications, but really looking forward to hear what council has to say or any questions that you have, and we will do our best to answer them. And I think today's conversation with council will further continue to direct our conversations with the district. So I'll leave it at that, and looking forward to any comments that council might have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we're going to start with Councillor Vocek, followed by Councillor Cooper, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Victoria and John, for your input on this. As most of you are aware, I'm a big proponent, advocate, and supporter of development non-waterfront on district roads. I've been working on this for 3 years now, trying to advocate and get reduced lot sizes and that, so there can be some affordable income and some development done off the waterfronts. I think it's very important in this township that we look at our long-term finances and we figure out ways to increase our tax revenues to support the infrastructure needs of this township. So I don't really have any real concerns with this application. The one thing, and I'd like clarification from Clerk Waive, if I may, if she's listening, you detailed letters of support and letters against this. In your reading, I didn't see anything from Maple Leaf Marinas, which is the parent company of South Bay Cove Marina, which is directly across the street here. And I'm just wondering if you could inform me that A, they were notified, and B, that we did not receive any correspondence from them, because I think they would probably be a major commenter on this, being they're a commercial property right across the street from us. Thank you.
Certainly, Councillor Bocheck, through your worship. If they're directly across the street, they would have been within the catchment area of the 120 to 800 meters to receive that notice that would have been circulated prior to today's public meeting. I can confirm that as of this morning at 9 o'clock, right when the meeting was started, I did receive an updated list of all correspondence received, and none had been received from that marina at that time.
Okay, this is surprising, as I'm the general manager of Blue Water and South Bay Cove, and my regional manager and I met this morning, and we both agreed that there was no notification sent or received. I shouldn't say sent, I should say received, and that's why there was no comment given to this point. So I just wanted to make you aware of that we should really hear something from this major player right across the street before we, move too much more forward, because I think they're a pretty big ratepayer and have a lot of stake in this area. So I'd certainly like to hear the comments from Maple Leaf Marinas on this, and we'll deal with that in the future, I guess.
Ms. Waive.
I have just received confirmation from the planning department per circulation notice that Maple Leaf Marinas was circulated via mail. So what happens once it leaves us and goes through Canada Post, I cannot comment on, but they were definitely on our circulation list.
Thank you very much for that, Karen, and I will certainly investigate and find out. In a big corporation, sometimes things get lost in the mailroom, so we don't really know what happened here. But I have no objections at this point, and I think this is a needed development and really a trailblazer for a lot of things I've been looking forward to doing in this township for a long time. So thank you, Victoria and John, for this.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper, followed by Councillor Rienko, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Victoria, John, the entire thing. I first of all wanted to say I'm studying with the sentiment that is being expressed by Councillor Bocheck. Be happy to see more development off waterfront, but we need to do some work with respect to our official plan and zoning bylaws to reflect that. So that would be a point, and haven't done that yet. So just wanted to make that comment, but a couple of others as well. This is a public meeting, and yet there's information that hasn't been completed with respect to the EIS studies and peer review. So I get concerned when there could be changes implemented, even if it's just a peer review. The public needs to have the right to comment. As far as I'm concerned, if we don't have full information, then we need another public meeting at the time we have all information. So I wanted to make that point to our clerks department and to our planning department that that's where I come from with respect to public transparency. So that's that. I would like to know, though, from our planner, who was brought in as the peer reviewer. Was it the firm that we work with at the district in Bracebridge? Who is the peer reviewer in this particular piece?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Cooper, Hutchinson Environmental Services is the environmental consultant that the township uses for peer review. They were the ones responsible for conducting the peer review of the submitted environmental impact assessment.
That would be very good to hear. I'm glad to hear that. They certainly have a very high reputation, and I think it's important to have somebody of that caliber commenting on this particular situation. So anyway, I would also like to hear an answer about the public meeting aspect of this, because we haven't got all our information, and the public needs to be able to comment on all information. Could I have a comment from somebody on that, please? Thank you.
I guess, Jen, through you, Mr. Mayor, I guess that Ms. Gaudet is on the call. I will defer to her for comment.
Sorry for stepping on your toes there, Catherine. I suspect you were going to say the same thing. Planning staff are recommending deferral of the application. So it would come back to another public meeting when it comes back, when all the information is available. So there will be another public meeting.
Yes, correct. That is what I was going to say. So I'll get.
Sorry, you were breaking up. I wondered if you could, either one of you could repeat that again. My signal is not particularly strong.
There will be another public meeting when it comes back.
Very good. This is a new direction for us. Thank you.
Councillor Oyenko, followed by Councillor Douglas, please.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I'm in support of the application. However, I am concerned that we might get a flood of these applications from various individuals trying to subdivide their lots into smaller lots. And I'm concerned about the issue of affordability. I'm all supportive of subdividing some of these lots, but I also want to make sure that these new lots fit into an affordability for those individuals in our township who are looking for new lots. And I don't want to get into the position where people are going to subdivide their lots into smaller lots to maximize their profits. And so basically, I guess my comment or question is to John. Are you taking into consideration the issue of affordability for our young folks in a township that are looking to build, but necessarily can't afford a developed lot? And is there any portions of these lots being considered at a reduced rate for affordability?
Mr. White.
Sorry. Through your worship, if I may.
Please.
Thank you. As far as the affordability goes, we haven't really established what we think a market value or a fair market value would be. As an employer of skilled tradespeople here in our township, that is definitely on our mind between my wife and myself and so forth. That I think even when we look at staffing at the township level, very few staff at the township live in our township for one reason or another. And that's not for me to decide or discuss. As far as the affordability goes, you are correct that obviously it is an investment property to Kim and myself. If we were to make the lots bigger and more along the lines of an estate lot, I think we would potentially change the potential purchasers of these lots if they got to be a grander scale and size. I don't perceive that most folks looking to buy off the waterfront are going to be I don't think that these lots are going to command great numbers like we've seen that were stratospherical only 6 or 8 months ago. I don't know how better to comment on that as far as the affordability and that sort of thing goes. We all have to bear in mind that there's, a septic system requirement, clearly and obviously water and that sort of thing. So I think it's all relevant as far as what's affordable and what is not and to whom. But certainly I would like to see, more potential staffing for likes myself and the rest of the community around the area to be able to live closer to where we work and enjoy what Georgian Bay has to offer. So that's kind of who I perceive the target folks are for those lots. That's my perception.
Okay, thanks, John. Yeah, I think I kind of agree with your attitude that we've got to be able to develop these lots for our residents and our trades people to be able to afford to live in our township. I think that we need to, as a council or the new council, needs to look into the issue of these projects coming forward where people are going to be making smaller lots and so on. And I think we should have some kind of policy where we say, okay, we allow these small lots to be built as long as, say, 50% are discounted to be affordable and so on. So I don't want to get up into a rash of these things and people maximizing their income when people in our own township can't even afford to buy a house or a lot and so on. So I think we need to bring an issue to council where our planning department comes up with a policy about these smaller lots and so on and try to make them affordability. So I think I'll probably try to bring something out of a future council, I would think, and maybe move something like that forward in a timely fashion so we can allow these individuals to come up with these smaller subdivisions.
Thank you. Councillor Douglas, followed by Councillor Hazelton, please.
Thank you and good morning, everyone. Apologies for my lateness. Internet is not being kind the last couple of days. Thank you for the presentation. I too have really no concerns with this. I'm really happy to see that there is some lot creation being made, and the fact that it may be a little bit smaller may reflect to what John was referring to, his regard and understanding of what we need in the township, and I appreciate his attitude on that. He would be well aware, being an employer, how difficult it is to get staffing and encourage staff to stay, whether it be in the trades or the municipality staffing, whatever. I mean, it's been a very difficult thing to get a grasp on over the last number of years, actually. So I'm very much in favor of smaller lots if that reflects a little bit in the price because of the size of them. I think it's something that we need to look at very seriously. And I have absolutely no objection to your efforts here, John. So I look forward to the next meeting as it comes up. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hazelton, please.
Thank you. I'd like to just make a couple of comments here, if I may. First of all, I think that this is a step in the right direction. John, I think you're blazing trails here along with Victoria, trying to come up with some new strategies for creating new lots in our township on roads that currently exist. And although it may not conform with district policies, I think the district really needs to hear from us that this is something that we need in our township and that we should be approving this and encouraging other projects similar to this. So I do very much support what you're trying to accomplish here, and I like the way you've framed it as you're not severing off giant estate lots, but in fact lots that could in fact be affordable. So I really appreciate that. A couple other general comments. Just I heard Councillor Bocek talk about the lack of explicit notification to South Bay Cove Marina. And I think one of the things that we should, as a township, be doing here is where we have significant neighbors of size, we need not to pretend that sending something out into the Neverland is enough. I think we need to consciously track that we have received communication. And if we did get communication from a significant neighbor, I think we need to find another way to reach out and confirm that, because I think we as a township should feel obligated to close the loop and not feel that just firing off something into the Neverland is enough. So I very much support that strategy. And kind of the third key comment that I'd like to make, and thank you, Jen, for commenting that this will come back as a public meeting. I'm assuming that the environmental assessment and the peer review will both be made public prior to that next public meeting. So we will have an opportunity to review the work and the peer review work that has been done. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one question and then a comment. My question is, part of the report said that the proposed, or the application, if you will, is in conflict with the district official plan and zoning bylaw being on one of their roads. And I'm wondering, does that mean that the applicants have to make an application to district to get their codes, their official plan and zoning bylaw amended, or is that something that staff does at the district level if they're satisfied that under the circumstances it's not going to risk road safety and whatever other concerns they might have?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, Ms. Goddard is here to answer the question.
So through you, Your Worship, to you, the district does have a mechanism to amend their official plan. That was not required in this case because the district does allow certain circumstances where you can reduce that road frontage. However, they identified in their commenting letter that they don't believe all of those conditions have been met. So Ms. Lemieux mentioned that there was a discussion last week between the district and the applicants, and we're expecting that will be resolved prior to the next public meeting. And we will have the information of where the district has landed on conformity with their own official plan with regard to the lot sizes.
And that's a district staff decision versus a council decision at that level?
Yes, unless they decide that it needs a district official plan amendment, which I don't see it going that far.
Okay.
But if it did require a full amendment, then it would go to their council.
And I appreciate that, because my concern is that we do have a number of district roads within our township that actually never leave our township, but they're still considered district roads. And that, as we've heard from a number of council members, we believe that having smaller lots would automatically become more affordable. That doesn't mean they're necessarily affordable, but they get closer to affordability. And it's one way to address the housing shortage in this area is by allowing more lots, and a lot that has 100 meters frontage or something along that line. I mean, that would be considered a huge lot in an urban center. So it's not like we're trying to create postage stamp lots here. So I think that the motion reads to defer, and we're deferring because of environmental review not being completed. But I think there's a definite interest on this council to allow for smaller lots on our. They may be district roads, but in many cases they're our only road in the area. So anyway, those are my comments. Ms. Lemieux, you want a follow-up?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just had a final comment I wanted to make just to bring some further context to the conversation that we did have with district staff last week. So essentially, there's really two layers at the district level that we're having to work through. the applicants did receive conditional entrance permits from the District of Muskoka for 3 of the retained lots, and then 1 for the, or sorry, 3 of the severed lots, and then the 1 retained lot, which we anticipate the 1 severed lot would share an entrance, which, as all of council's familiar, there's many shared driveways throughout the township. The concerns at the district level are more from an engineering perspective of, essentially they have this engineering standard for 500-foot frontage lots, and us having to, like council, many members of council have mentioned, kind of be the first to really say, hey, we think this might be a good idea for this specific municipality. And then the other layer that we have been in discussions with the planning department is more from a character perspective. So that's a conversation that us as the proponent, obviously myself and John, who has been in the municipality for a very long time. No offense, John. We do believe that this is what the township needs, and we do believe that it is reasonable from a character perspective, what we're proposing. But again, I think just the district hasn't really seen this before in the township. And this is why this conversation we're having today is so important, because obviously as the political leaders of the township, you have a huge say in, really what you as a council want to see the character of the township being moving forward. So I think I appreciate everyone's comments, and I know that members of district staff, I think, are watching today, or they will be watching the playback of this meeting to get further insights. So we are aware that the meeting will be coming back in front of council, which all those documents will be provided, I believe, as part of the agenda package once we're able to address all the environmental concerns. And also, hopefully, we'll have a fruitful update for council in regards to our discussions with the district and how we can see this proposed development proceeding. So just wanted to reiterate that there's kind of the 2 levels there of, having to appease engineering standards as well as the planning department. And I think John probably has some follow-up comments to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. White, and then we'll go to Councillor Cooper following your comments.
Thank you, Your Worship. With regards to character of the entire township, let's say, people have asked, because lots of folks I've had discussion with lots of folks, and a few of them are aware of the terminology character. And they've asked, how is your proposal going to affect character compared to other areas, or why hasn't this taken place sooner or in other areas in the past? And when you look up and down any of our roads, whether it's South Bay Road, or up in the 12-mile Bay areas and so on, a lot of these little roads have PSWs, whether they're recognized or not recognized, and they don't suit development because you just simply can't get a driveway in without some substantial environmental impact. And I believe that's why a lot of that stuff either hasn't been proposed at this point or would not likely get strong support, because even when, for argument's sake, we look at South Bay Road itself, there's a great amount of wetland on which abuts South Bay Road. So even if, for argument's sake, I own out towards the Honey Harbor Road further, it turns into a marsh area where I don't expect that anybody would ever support development. So I think to maintain the character is rather, in some regards, easy for me to say, simply because the areas, there's only certain amounts of areas within Georgian Bay where a builder of any sort of value would say, yeah, this is a good place to put a structure where it's not at risk of flood damage or something else of that nature, or it's simply going to have an environmental impact that we just can't support. And that's why we've had the McClelskey-Nielsen do a great amount of reporting and so on. I'm not sure if you good folks have had opportunity to read the many pages that Gord's team did put together. They've been requested to do some bird and bat work, I think is what it has. But point being, as much as we're a big township, we don't really have a gross amount of great building sites.
Well, and I think your lot actually proves that when probably at least half your lot is not developable.
Agreed.
Wetlands and the drainage and all that.
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Cooper.
Just once again, I wanted to say I support the overall concept of providing land that can be used in a smaller sort of scale and affordable scale. But I just wanted to make a couple of comments further to all the discussion. And I think there are some areas in our township, as being pointed out by Councillor Bocek, that could develop from, could be developed into affordable lots. So I think there are some areas, maybe there are many that aren't, and for certain we have lots of wetlands, so I understand that. And thanks, John, for your comments about that. So I think there is opportunity, and I want to go back to something I said at the outset, but also Councillor Wianco, which was that I think it's important that we think about this not just as a one-off. I think we need to think about it in terms of future development in our township and developing official plan amendments and zoning bylaw amendments to deal with this particular matter, so that we're not always dealing with a one-off, or as Councillor Wianco warned, perhaps a flood of people trying to do all sorts of developments. So it's a make work project for our staff, for one thing, if we don't have certain things in place. So I see a little bit of nodding from our planners that maybe that's resonating with them. I don't know, maybe they're just being nice, but in any event, I do encourage that we take a very careful look at that. And I know that Jen is probably shaking her head at me and saying, okay, that's lovely, Councillor Cooper, but we've got so many other things in front of us. Well, we'll even have more in front of us if we don't sort of try and deal with the issue of a lot of this coming at us in the not too distant future. So that was my only final comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Douglas.
Thank you. I'm not going to echo the comments from Councillor Wianco or Cooper. I agree with many of what they're saying, much of what they're saying. But I will say one thing, in keeping the character in the township, John, you had a lot of letters of support from, I'm taking it, your neighbors in this area. Is that correct?
Some of two of the letters of support were from the King family, which probably owned several hundred acres in that area for many, many years. The King family sold off some of it to alternate parties and so forth. One of the neighbors' letters down at the end of the road, he is, I believe, chief financial officer for Zayres Marshall, which is a massive multinational development firm. One of the other ones is a neighbor on Harmony Lane who recently moved his family from Toronto to here and is himself looking for another piece of land. And then a couple of neighbors who live on Birch Acres, where I am here, pardon me, and we all have very, very small lots, incredibly small lots, less than a half an acre, and no room for storage. So they think that these 3 to 5 acre lots or greater are absolutely massive.
Okay, thank you. I just was wanting to point out that obviously we've got community members that think this is a very good idea. And I think I would agree with our other councillors that this should be the beginning of something that we look at getting some framework for the township. And I applaud you, John. Yeah, thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. And I can echo most of what you've heard already, but that would just get everyone bored. So instead, I am going to read the motion that is in front of me, and it's moved by Councillor Cooper, seconded by Councillor Douglas. How appropriate, the last two speakers. Be it resolved that council defers the proposed official plan O22-01 and zoning bylaw amendment Z22-06 applications until peer review comments are addressed in a revised environmental impact study in conformity with the district official plan has been demonstrated with regard to lot frontages. Any final comments? All those in favor of the deferral? And that is carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council, are you up to one more planning application before we take a break? All right. We then are now going to talk about.
Can I just say something before we go in?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I was just wondering, say we talked about this idea of more applications coming and the need for some kind of policy to ensure affordability and so on. Do I need to bring a motion at the next meeting, or is staff already working on a policy for these types of mini developments?
Why don't we let our CEO respond to that?
So I will also defer to Jen as well, just to confirm what I'm about to say. However, I think once a lot has been severed, the owner can do whatever he or she wishes to do within the framework of the development that we have. So I don't believe there's a policy that we can implement that says thou shalt be an affordable housing lot. But I'll defer to Jen on that.
Ms. Cadet.
Okay, there we go. Yes, Dr. Mariotti is correct. So the Planning Act allows us to provide conditions for consent, but they cannot be financial conditions with regard to the sale of the lot. So we aren't able to legally say, if you make this attainable or affordable housing, or you sell it for X, then we'll give you this. That's not something the Planning Act allows us to do. There are certain sections of the Planning Act, Section 37, which is bonusing, that can stipulate affordable housing, but that's used for bonusing, which is, say you're allowed 5 stories and you want to go to 10. Well, we'll give you those extra 10 if, X percent are affordable, and then affordable is defined, as the 30% of your income for the average resident type thing. So with that in mind, planning staff are not currently reviewing lot frontages or areas or any attainable housing strategies or suggesting any changes to the official plan or zoning bylaw. But if that's something council wants us to look at, we will need the resolution passed because it's not currently on our radar list.
But maybe if I just could continue on, I know in large subdivisions, and I've seen them at the district, and I'm sure Councillor Cooper has too, whereas they have large subdivisions and a certain part of the subdivision is considered affordable and so on. So I've seen that in large applications. But in our case, maybe we can say if a lot is smaller than this or this size, we can say, okay, we can take a large piece of property, and the smaller the lots are, the more affordable they are. So we can have some kind of an acreage or square footage or whatever that we can determine to be more affordable. So instead of having a price, we have a size of lot. Something like that could be arranged.
Yeah, there could be indirect influence on the eventual price of lots, but that's sort of as much as we can do.
All right, Councillor Cooper, I don't want to go drift too far off in this direction without having something in front of us. So Councillor Cooper, you want to make an added remark to it?
Just I support what is being discussed here by Councillor Rienk. Maybe it would be a good idea to bring this to Committee of the Whole, which I'm hearing we might even resurrect, which would be an excellent idea. And this could be a subject that we could discuss because there may be ways to achieve affordable and attainable housing through size versus the verbiage of affordable. And we could discuss that and give direction to staff so that that we can develop some bylaws and official plan directions that would allow us to provide a lot more affordable housing in the township. So that's my suggestion, that we get that on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I think if I may, that even in the example that was in front of us, the application of Mr. White, you know, if he's got 4 lots to sell, each of those lots are going to attract certainly a much lower price than if he was trying to sell the entire lot as a whole. And therefore, you know, just by the nature of being a much smaller lot, they become more affordable, not necessarily affordable for some of the target audience, but certainly closer. With that, let's go on to our next application, and this is for 335 Corrievale Road. Ms. Bradford, you'll be speaking to this?
Yes, I will. Hello again. Can everyone see my presentation?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, so this is a zoning bylaw amendment application for the lands located at 335 Corrievale Road. The intent of the application is to facilitate the rezoning of the subject lands that were erroneously zoned Crown land under the zoning bylaw 2014-75 to its former shoreline residential type 1 SR1 zone. There's no development that's being proposed through this application. It is just for the rezoning of the subject property to address an administrative error. Staff are recommending approval of the application and include a holding H4 symbol to address the environmental features at the time of future proposed development on the subject property. Removal of the H4 is subject to site plan approval supported by an environmental impact assessment. So the subject property is located along the shoreline of Little Lake. It has an area of approximately 0.47 hectares and a frontage of approximately 43.9 meters along the shoreline. As noted in the application, the subject property is currently occupied by a single detached dwelling, a boathouse, a sleeping cabin, and a dock. All the existing structures are legally existing. The subject property is largely surrounded by Crown land with the detached shoreline residential development located further in all directions. Aerial review of the subject property suggests the presence of mature vegetation. The surrounding properties appear to be occupied by detached residential dwellings and cottages, as well as dense natural vegetation. The subject property is located on rural lands as defined in the provincial policy statement. The PPS states that on rural lands located in municipalities, residential development is permitted, and that development that is compatible with the rural landscape should be promoted. While no development is being proposed through this application, the existing development of a single detached residential dwelling is an appropriate use on the property, and it's generally compatible with the surrounding land uses. The subject property is located adjacent to the Gloucester Pool wetland, which is a provincially significant wetland. The PPS states that development or site alteration shall not be permitted on adjacent lands to natural heritage features and areas unless the ecological function of these lands have been evaluated and no negative impacts on natural features are demonstrated. The applicant is proposing no development or site alteration on the subject property at this time, and the proposed rezoning is consistent with the PPS. Staff recommend that the proposed rezoning be approved with the holding H4 symbol. The provision for lifting the H4 shall be subject to site plan approval and the completion of an EIS to address the natural heritage features on and adjacent to the subject property. The district official plan designates the subject property as waterfront area. Permitted uses within the waterfront area include low-density single-unit recreational dwellings and limited year-round low-density single-unit residential development. Currently, the subject property has a one-story single detached dwelling, a boathouse, and a sleeping cabin, all of which are permitted. No further development is being proposed on the subject property at this time. The subject property abuts waterfront that is identified as a provincially significant wetland. The district OP states that development and site alterations are not permitted in PSWs. However, development may be considered through evaluation and demonstration of no negative impacts. The applicant is not proposing any further development or site alteration on the property at this time. However, pursuant to the noted policies, staff are recommending rezoning the lands with the holding H4 symbol. Oh, sorry, guys. Jumped ahead. Got a little excited there. The subject property is located along the Trent Severn Waterway. The District OP notes that Parks Canada shall be consulted in preparation of an EIS on the lands adjacent to Trent Severn Waterway. The District OP also notes that a heritage impact assessment may be required on the lands adjacent to the Trent Severn Waterway, and a marine archaeological assessment may also be required. Pursuant to the noted policies, the applicant is advised to consult with Parks Canada for any future proposed development on the subject property. The District OP also identifies the subject property as having high to very high archaeological potential. While no development is being proposed through this application, the need for an archaeological assessment will be evaluated at the time development is proposed on the property. The district also noted that the subject property may contain species at risk and/or their habitat. These items need to be addressed through an EIS, which is required to lift the recommended hold. Based on the review of the relevant policies, the application conforms to the policies of the District of Muskoka official plan. The subject property is designated as waterfront in the township's official plan. No development is being proposed at this time, but the subject property currently has a single detached dwelling and 2 accessory buildings which are permitted in the OP. The subject property is identified as being part of the Gloucester Pool wetland, a provincially significant wetland, and as such, development and site alteration are not permitted. Since the current application is strictly for the rezoning of the lands, the PSW adjacent to the property will be addressed at a time where future proposed development is proposed through the recommended H4 holding provision. The official plan also identifies fish habitat type 1 adjacent to the subject property. Fish habitat will be addressed through the EIS at the time of future development through the recommended H4 provision. Based on the above, staff are of the opinion that the proposal conforms to the Township of Georgian Bay official plan. The subject property is currently zoned Crown Land. Previously, it was zoned Shoreline Residential Type 1 in the former zoning bylaw 1991-91, and it was erroneously changed to Crown Land. The applicant is requesting that the subject property be rezoned back to its previous Shoreline Residential Type 1. The rezoning of the subject property addresses an administrative error. Here's just a site photo showing property. The intent of the application is to facilitate the rezoning of the subject lands that are erroneously zoned Crown Land to its former Shoreline Residential Type 1 SR1 zone. Based on a review of the relevant planning policies, staff recommend approving the application with the holding H4 symbol to address the environmental features at the time of future proposed development on the subject property. Thank you so much, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for that. Excuse me, thank you for that report. To our clerk, is there anything you need to report with regard to correspondence, please?
One letter of correspondence was received from the Chilliam Lakelands District School Board stating no comments. One letter of correspondence was received from the District of Muskoka recommending a deferral pending confirmation that the proposed redevelopment will have no impacts on the natural features or on the ecological functions of the adjacent Gloucester Pool provincially significant wetland.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we know whether the applicant or any members of the public are present to comment on this? I don't think I saw them. Okay. With that, then I will turn it over to our council for their comments, and we're going to lead off with Councillor Bocek, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Great presentation, although it being very confusing at times. I've been involved in this. This is a family friend of ours. And maybe I'll just make it really clear what happened here. Years ago, this family has a home on a residential lot, and then all of a sudden, unbeknownst to him, they changed his zoning to Crown Land. He found out about it. He came to our planning department and said, "You got to put my zoning back the way it was." And they said, "Well, we can do that, but it's going to cost you a fistful of money. And he said, I don't want to pay any money for this. It's not my fault. They said, well, if you want to let it run its course, and this is through 3 or 4 planning managers that this has gone on with, if you want to let it run its course, we will get to it and do it at no charge, but it's going to be on our timelines, not on your timelines. He does not want to do any development. He has his home and his driveway, and it's been there for years. And because of an error on our part, it was rezoned into Crown land. So I can assure you that this is simply correcting a mistake that was made, and it's been so long, and he's waited so long just so that it could be done without a fee to him, because he had no part in this to begin with. So that may enlighten some of the council members of what's really going on here. All the other gobbledygook had to be put in there so we understand that no further development is happening, and there's a hold being put on. In other words, if he ever wanted to do anything with this property that never had a hold on it to begin with, we're putting a hold on it now because we have the opportunity to put a hold on it now. And there's no intention for any further development. He just wants his zoning back the way it was. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that background and that technical term gobbledygook. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor Coetzee, and I'll try and limit my gobbledygook to very little here, but I just I wanted to comment. One is that it's being suggested that we defer this, I think, until I don't have the reports in front of me again, so I have to do it all from memory. So I think that's what we're being asked. But in addition,
deferral is not recommended here. It's recommended.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Recommended approval, but with an H4 added.
So there's a second aspect to this, which is terminology. We've learned recently through not only advice, but decisions through the OLT that the term site plan control or site plans and so forth are basically an urban tool. And it talks, site plans typically have sidewalks and street lights and that kind of thing, which are really irrelevant in most of our residential areas in the township of Georgian Bay. And I think we found out that the term that can be used is in order to accommodate an H4 and then subsequent things after that would be a site-specific bylaw versus site plan control. So I'd like to hear comment about the use of the term site plan control, because I honestly believe it's not a very good tool for our rural and waterfront environment. Thank you.
Ms. Gadet.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To you, Councillor Cooper, there will be a forthcoming update at the next council meeting where there will be a report coming from legal counsel and the planning department updating council on the hold approach. But the short form of it is that we were advised by legal counsel to essentially disregard that OLT decision in terms of applying it generally. We're told it was very, very case specific. So that update is coming and it will be referenced. There's another hold removal. You'll likely noticed it on the agenda today. But we were basically told site plan is appropriate for studies. Keep doing it that way, and that OLT decision was very unique because it was type 1 fish habitat and a dock, and that's sort of where that landed. So with that in mind, we are sort of continuing our previous approach of doing studies through site plan. Essentially, we follow the pattern of development. So if it's required to have the study at the first application, so zoning, OPA, whatever that first application is, we're going to continue to ask for it there. But if it's something about future development, which is the case for the application before council right now, we think it's appropriate to, throw that to a future application. So the EIS and then any future studies that would be required through site plan to support it would be done once we have an idea of what this might be redeveloped with in the future. So I know that was a lot for a 2-minute quick summary, but there will be a report giving a full thing, and Mr. Pickfield will be there during that meeting to give the full background on everything, as well as the planning department to give our updates on that. So there will be more coming.
Thank you for that. And I just would like to say that there's more than one case. There's about 3 or 4 cases. So I don't want to argue that here today. At the moment, I just wanted to ask the question. I think we've got a long road ahead of us on that subject. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rienko, please, followed by Councillor Jarvis.
This is just for clarification. Obviously, I'm going to support this application, but in our package, there's 2 site diagrams. One of them shows the property not included in the township road allowance, and another diagram showing it, the road allowance is part of the property. So which of our diagrams is correct? Is the road allowance been bought by these people and part of the property, or is it not?
Ms. Brad?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Rienko. I believe the shore road allowance has been purchased, but I want to confirm before I give you a definitive answer. So is it okay if I circle back and get back to you on that?
It's not shore road allowance. It's right away, township right away. Sorry, maybe I explained it wrong, but there's a right of way going down there, and one diagram shows that he's bought that, and the other one shows he hasn't. So which is right?
I'm through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Rienko. I'm not certain what diagram you are referring to.
Schedule A in the proposed zoning bylaw. The red line is drawn over the road allowance to the south of the property.
I think we'll have to confirm that afterwards.
Okay, just it makes it different, I guess, in the size of the lot if it's 66 feet bigger than it is.
Well, yeah, we don't want to compound a past error with a current error.
Yeah, sorry, let me circle back and get back to you on that.
Councillor Jarvis.
Yes, for a moment there, I was confused with what Councillor Rienko was getting at. But yeah, if you look at Schedule A, the road allowance seems to be included. And if you go back to the diagram, Schedule A site plan, yeah, it isn't. So yeah, that needs to be clarified. Other than that, I mean, correcting a previous error, I think we should be doing without any consideration for anything else. This guy had certain rights earlier on and has lost them due to an error that was made here, not made by him. And why make him pay? So I'm all in favor of changing this back to the shore road allowance and the SR1. The SR1 designation. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for the clarification on that. So I'm all in favor of it.
Thank you. Ms. Wade, did you want to add to the conversation?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I would just like to confirm that upon a preliminary search of our records, it appears that the road allowance is not purchased by the current applicant. So that line probably just needs to be adjusted before we print a final copy of our bylaw if it passed.
So you're proposing simply correction of that Schedule A to the zoning bylaw. Okay, thank you. All right, Ms. Bradford, did you want to confirm that or deny or?
Yes, so that line is not part of the property. It is an area that's owned by public authority having jurisdiction, is what it says online.
This would probably be us in this case. All right. Nothing would prevent us from passing this motion as written because it makes reference to 335 Corrievale Road. It doesn't, so they, can we pass the motion, Ms. Wade? Okay. The motion currently reads, moved by Councillor Hazelton, seconded by Councillor Jarvis. Be it resolved that Council enacts bylaw 2022-070, being a zoning bylaw amendment, Z22-13, to rezone the lands located at 335 Corrievale Road from Crown Land, or CL, to Shoreline Residential Type 1, SR1, and to include a holding H4 symbol on subject property. Any final discussion? All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. And yeah, Ms. Wade?
Just apologies, Your Worship. Upon a little bit further dig, we can confirm that that road allowance has been purchased. So the map within the Schedule A of the bylaw is correct.
Sorry, I missed that. One more time.
The road allowance has been purchased, so Schedule A within the draft bylaw is correct.
All right, thank you. With that, I'm going to suggest, we've been at this for over 2 hours, that we take a break before we go on to the rest of our meeting. And I have 11:17. Why don't we reconvene at 11:30? Take a little break, and at 11:30, we'll keep on going with our planning council meeting, please. And thank you. Sorry? Are we all almost ready to roll here? We need to see the faces of a couple more councillors. All right. The next item on our list, there will be planning application staff reports, or if you will, section 8 of our agenda. And I believe Ms. Gatso is going to present the first one. And okay.
Yes, you are correct, Mr. Mayor. I will share my screen now.
Ms. Gatso, if you could please proceed with your report on a request to waive fees for a zoning bylaw 2014-75 mapping error. Ms. Gatso.
Yes, thank you. I will share my screen now.
We're not hearing you, or is that me? No, it's me. I apologize. Now, I'm the one who was guilty. I apologize.
No problem. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So before you today, I have a request to waive fees for a zoning bylaw 2014-75 mapping error. The property, there's no municipal address at this time, but the roll number is 4465-0300-1900-100, which I will call hereby the subject property, just to save some time. So here today, an error was identified in the zoning of the subject property with the following roll number, and we have the legal description there. The source of the error was identified as a mapping error during the preparation of the zoning bylaw 2014-75. It is the understanding that the current township practice is that the property owner can initiate a zoning bylaw amendment at their own expense or wait until a housekeeping amendment to the zoning bylaw is prepared. The property owner has elected to move forward with this housekeeping amendment, which is why you are all here today. The property owner, Frank Abila, of the subject property, alerted township staff earlier in the year to an error in the zoning of his property. The planning department staff investigated and confirmed that a mapping error occurred during the preparation of the 2014 zoning bylaw 2014-75, that incorrectly identifies his property as being zoned open space 1, OS1, with environmental protection wetland, EPW. The zoning of the subject property will be should be rural, RU, in line with neighboring properties and as zoned prior to the 2014 bylaw. It is the opinion of the planning department that it is not appropriate for a property owner to pay to correct an administrative error made by the township. As the planning department is not aware of a history of applicants submitting applications at their own expense to correct administrative errors, the fees should be waived. Here is the current property. It is highlighted in red. As you can see, it says open space 1 when it should say rural, in line with the surrounding properties here. I've also noted that on the west side and a little bit to the south is Crown land. Further to that, the township planning staff recommend that council authorize the township's planning department to waive all fees associated with a zoning bylaw amendment to be submitted by the owner of the subject property with roll number 4465-0300-1900-100 to correct an error that occurred during the preparation of the zoning bylaw 2014-75. It is my understanding that the applicant intends to develop in the future. However, they have not made any indication of what they would like to develop, and we hope to bring a zoning bylaw amendment sometime in the future to assist them through this process. I can now answer any questions or comments you may have at this time.
Let's unmute myself. There we go. And yes, the speaker's on. One moment, please, Council Jarvis. I believe this is not a public meeting, but I understand that the applicant is present, and I didn't know if the applicant wanted to add any additional comments or just observe. Yeah, if he's, I don't know if the applicant is interested in making any comment, but I will allow that opportunity before we go to Councillors Jarvis and Wankum. Mr. Abella, I'm wondering whether you wish to make any additional comments before I turn this over to council.
Hold on.
Yes, this is a surprise to me when I find out that the property was rezoned to olive wetland and open space. And we have intention to maybe later on in the future to do something with it. And it looks like I've been listening to you that you were interesting to have something cutting properties in a cheaper price for people who cannot afford it. And I'm willing to work with you to do such a thing. And because it's a big property, it's 183 acres, and we can put a lot of homes that can be afforded by a lot of people. I'm willing to flexible and willing to negotiate anything that is possible.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for your time too.
Thank you. Councillor Jarvis, I believe I saw your hand go up fairly quickly, and then we'll follow with Councillor Wankum.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Mr. Mayor. This is for Catherine. I appreciate the work that's being done here, and I'm quite in favor of, waiving the fees of an error that we made. But I really want to know where the heck the property is.
Yes, I can. Let me actually bring up the whole mapping for you.
Thank you.
Okay, one moment. I actually have our GeoHub district software open right now. Just to give a larger piece of the puzzle of everything going on. You can see this property here. Unfortunately, I can't move this, but this large spot of green is the subject property.
And I see a road. Is that the Honey Harbor Road that's going through there? It is,
Yes,
isn't it?
I believe so.
Okay. Yeah, okay, that clarifies it for me. Thank you. One other question, and that is, again, I'm not going to vote against this, but there is some wetland on this property, correct?
Correct. That is correct. After you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Jarvis. At this time, we are only looking at waiving the fees. In the future, should the applicant wish to come forward with their zoning bylaw amendment, we anticipate that would be a need to be discussed at that time.
Okay, fine.
To satisfy various concerns.
Okay, well, like I said, if we make the error, I don't think our constituents should be paying for it. So let's get it corrected. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wankum. Your answer's been questioned. Your question has been answered, I'm gathering. Councillor Cooper, please.
Completely in favor of waiving the fee and dealing with this, so want to support that. But I just wanted to point out from a location perspective, it's interesting to note that this is adjacent to Macy Bay and all the wetlands to the west of the Honey Harbor Road, a massive number of wetlands that are of great concern to our constituents. And now this is to the east side of it. So just wanted to help with that geographic aspect of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? I have moved by Councillor Wankum, seconded by Councillor Bocheck. Be it resolved that council authorizes the township's planning department to waive all fees associated with a zoning bylaw amendment to be submitted by the owner of the subject property with roll number 4465 030 019 00100 to correct an error that occurred during the preparation of the zoning bylaw 2014-75. All those in favor? And that has carried. Thank you. And our next application is a zoning bylaw amendment Z22-10 for 20 Arthur Island, and it's the removal of a holding or H2 symbol. And I believe I have Mr. Legros will be.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Legros did write the report for this application. However, he is not here today and I will be presenting on his behalf.
Well, I'm sure we all appreciate that, Ms. Gatso. If you could please go ahead.
Of course. Okay, I will just start from the beginning. Perfect. Is everyone able to see my slides?
Yes.
Amazing. So before you today, we have zoning bylaw amendment Z2210 at 20 Arthur Island, also known as Island 2075. The applicant for this, so we are here today to for the zoning bylaw amendment to remove an H2 symbol on the subject property. The owners of the subject property are Janet and Matthew Murphy. Their address is 20 Arthur Island on Georgian Bay. An overview of the subsequent report is they're requesting the removal of the H2 symbol. Under our current zoning bylaw, this requires the completion of a survey confirming the location of the high water mark and the lot area above it. It is the recommendation to council that they receive Development Services Report 2022-58 and approves it through a bylaw number to be determined, being a zoning bylaw amendment to lift the holding H2 symbol on lands legally described as Island 2, Plan 35 M677, Lot 8. As we can see here, we have the subject property highlighted in orange. Additionally, the subject property is located here. It is currently a treed lot. In terms of the provincial policy statement, the lands are classified as rural, and it is consistent with the PPS, the provincial policy statement, as residential development is permitted on rural lands, and the applicant intends to build a single residential dwelling. As you can see in this site photo, a very treed lot, and Adam indicated that this is the potential building site that is to be cleared, but that can be determined at a later date. In terms of the District of Muskoka official plan, the lands are classified as waterfront area and rural. It abuts a cold water lake and has moderate to high archaeological potential. It is determined that the application is consistent with the District of Muskoka official plan, as low density residential dwellings are permitted in waterfront and rural areas. The setback to the cold water lake will be assessed at the site plan stage, and an archaeological assessment is not required for minor development. Additionally, we can see here is another photo taken by Mr. Legros showing the potential view of the building site and mature freeze in front. In terms of the Township of Georgian Bay official plan, the lands are zoned Cognishing Coastal Waterfront Community. There's a type 2 fish habitat abutting the property. And then on the adjacent property, you can see type 1 fish habitat, which is within the 120 meters. It is our understanding that the application conforms to the Township of Georgian Bay official plan, as residential development is permitted in the waterfront designation in the Cognishing Coastal Waterfront Community. And however, through section F563, site plan control will be required for the proposed development. The applicant has been informed that the fish habitat assessment will be required, and it is my understanding that they're in current communication with consultants to get this work done as soon as possible as a requirement. As we can see here, the applicant has submitted a plan of survey showing the 177.4 contour line here, the high water mark, and has confirmed that the area above the high water mark is 12,400 square meters. For your convenience, that is equating to 3.06 acres or 1.24 hectares. Additionally, here we can see some site photos taken by Mr. Legros, the approximate location of the lands here. Again, here with some islands on the neighboring property and the shoreline as well. It is our recommendation that Council receives Development Services Report 2022-58 and approves it through a bylaw, being zoning bylaw amendment to lift a holding H2 symbol on lands legally described as Island 2, Plan 35M677, Lot 8. Thank you all. That is my presentation, and hopefully I can answer some questions. I know that this decision to approve a hold lift without retrieval of an environmental impact assessment goes against what you were told earlier in the previous council. However, due to the recent things brought to light of the OLT decision, you will be receiving a report by legal counsel and by the planning department backing up this interpretation and us moving forward with lifting the hold with the environmental impact study required at the site plan stage. If you have additional questions on this, I will defer to Ms. Gaudet at JLR. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know if we have anybody. I see Janet Murphy. I don't know if Janet Murphy is the applicant, and Matt Murphy, whether they want to make any comment before I turn it over to council for their review. To the Murphys, do either of you wish to make any comment before I turn it over to council?
I'm okay without a comment. Mom, you want to say anything?
No, I just want to say we welcomed the planner up and took him through the site, and you saw the pictures of the beautiful day that he had to ride out to the property that we're discussing today, and we're aware of the requirement of the fish habitat environmental study, and that's underway. We're just waiting for the folks to come up and do that, and the property that has the fish type 1 habitat, there is a wetlands there. It's adjacent to the property in question that we're requesting the lift to be released, or the hold, I guess is what it is. And that property is already developed on Arthur Island. There is a cottage there. So I'm assuming at some point that environmental fish habitat study is on record somewhere. So we'll just follow up and do what we're asked to do and provide the information that you need.
All right, well, thank you very much. With that, I'm going to turn it over to council, and I see Councillor Hastings' hand raised.
Thank you. So my questions really relate more to process than anything here. So it seems that the procedures and process that we were going through as of the last meeting have suddenly changed, and we're now going through a different process without consultation with council. That causes me great concern. But I welcome the opportunity to engage in dialogue with staff and legal counsel, and perhaps outside legal counsel as the need may be to get to a point of general consensus on this. I would like to understand, though, it states that a fish habitat impact assessment is going to be required. It doesn't say that a peer review of the fish habitat impact assessment is going to be required, and that's something we've always required in the past. And given that it's going to be controlled, it's going to be required under site plan control. It's now back to staff and council have no play or participation in the site plan process. It's a process between staff and the property owner. So it leaves me quite concerned that with our environmental focus that we've had, with that being our #1 strategic direction, we are now delegating everything to staff before council can be comfortable that everything has been done that meets the #1 strategic criteria of the township. So could somebody enlighten me on how council is going to be able to feel comfortable that these practices we've had as of last meeting will make us feel comfortable going forward?
Ms. Gadet.
Through you, your worship, to Councillor Hazelton. I think the report that will be forthcoming next council meeting will be very helpful for all of council to understand why we've had this sort of yo-yo in our direction regarding the hold lifts. We know it's been frustrating for council. It's been pretty stressful for us and for the applicants as well. So we apologize for the confusion that that OLT decision has caused everybody. Wanted to mention that although we didn't explicitly refer to a peer review, as a matter of course, all of our environmental reports are peer reviewed. That's just because staff don't have the environmental expertise. So hopefully that provides some comfort regarding this particular application.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper, please.
Thank you, Mayor Kutsier, and thank you for the report. And Jen, for your clarification. I am anxious for the applicants to be able to move forward. I'm very concerned about the change in direction between direction from council recently and another new practice and the yo-yo effect. So in one case, it is not, it's several. So there's a problem. And I want to state that right now. Thank you.
Ms. Gadet.
Through you, your worship, I know that wasn't a question, but just to provide some additional clarity. So last meeting, when we deferred those 3 or 4 applications, pending that new direction, we're going to be bringing them back for approval at the, so we'll have that general report about the holds next council meeting. And then those applications that were deferred will be coming for approval. So it will be sort of going back to the old way that we were processing the H2 lifts. I hope that provides some general clarity for everyone.
Thank you. Councillor Yanko.
Yeah, I have no problem approving this one today. It looks like most of the shoreline on this property is amenable to docks and so on. There's no actual fish habitat in front of the property and so on. Plus, they have a large building envelope about 25 feet back from the shore, and a septic system, large septic zone, 30 meters back. So in this particular case, it looks like it's fairly straightforward. Big building lot. Yeah, maybe later they'll need an environmental study and all that, but I think in this case, I don't see any environmental issues jumping out that we need to withhold the hold today.
Thank you. Any further comment? I have moved by Councillor Douglas, seconded by Councillor Hazelton. Be it resolved that council receives Development Service Report 2022-58 and approves bylaw 2022-071, being a zoning bylaw amendment Z22-10 to lift a holding H2 symbol on lands legally described as Island 2, Plan 35M677, Lot 8. Any further discussion? All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. All right, I don't believe we had any new business to add to the agenda, and therefore we're now preparing ourselves for a closed session. I've moved by Councillor Jarvis, seconded by Councillor Wienko. Whereas Section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001, as amended, provides authority to councils of municipalities to close a meeting or parts of a meeting to the public if the subject matter pertains to a matter identified in Section 239(2). And whereas the Council of the Township of Georgian Bay deems it necessary to close this portion of the meeting in order to redress matters under the following Section 239(2), floating structures. Advice that is subject to a solicitor-client privilege, including communication necessary for that purpose. Now be it resolved that Council of the Township of Georgian Bay moves into closed session of Council at 11:55 a.m. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you.